Welcome to Sports in the Law, examining legal evolution of America's three major leagues. We're thrilled to welcome you to the 2021 version. We have our teaching assistants, Erin and Ellie, whom you know, and Erin, who's been my longtime teaching partner on this course and colleague, professional colleague, Erin Caputo. Thanks for being with us in this chapter one. The update links are going to correspond back to the book, which is chapter one, the moral integrity of the sport, the role of the commissioner and the law. Starting at page one, commissioner's powers, misconduct on the field, drug use, diversity, and recent punishments under commissioner's authority. So we will have put out a class plan. We will have put out, with help from Erin and Ellie, a welcome letter telling you how we're going to go through each of these weeks. And this video will be uploaded, and it's meant to be an update to that which is in the book and all the study guides that are in the book. So welcome everybody, and you drew the short straw, Erin Caputo. We have our update links, which will also be posted under Commissioner's Authority. The personal conduct policy, again, page numbers in the book are pretty straightforward and self-evident. Commissioner's powers and the study guides that have related to those most important historical cases. But we have a few, Erin Caputo, like Deshaun Watson, which is testing the limits of commissioner's authority and the personal conduct policy. And it speaks for itself. He is alleged to have sexually assaulted many of his former massage therapists. He is a named defendant in lawsuits brought by 22 of his former therapists. Sexual assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, very, very bad stuff. Some of the stuff we see in some of the old study guides, terrible, terrible stuff. Police complaints, 8 of the 10 filed complaints among the 22. The police department in Houston has confirmed investigations ongoing. The league has begun it, and so on and so forth. Watts has not yet been interviewed. I think he's running fourth string. He's still on. He's not been placed on the example list. All of this is teased out in the book, Erin Caputo. But you know, why don't they just take action now? To ask a provocative question, why in the other cases, you know, commissioner could come in right here, right now, while these criminal and civil things are pending. Why do you think they're standing back and waiting to see how the criminal investigation evolves? And thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, that's definitely a possibility, but the NFL, as it traditionally does, usually waits for things to play out on the legal side before they make their decision. Let as much evidence come out as possible, whether it's a civil case or a criminal investigation. Like you see both of those instances here. The NFL usually likes to take its time to make a lot of these decisions, especially when you're talking about Deshaun Watson, the severity of this situation and the individual that it is, being one of the faces of the NFL. I think they want to handle this as carefully as possible. So waiting for as much information to come out is usually the play for them, and it especially is here.
And as always, thank you, Erin. We go to our textbook supplement. Study guide number 10 is the 2014 NFL Domestic Violence Suspension Study Guide, updated with Adrian Peterson, that study guide 11. So again, you're going to want to be going back and forth throughout to look at those study guides as we're now updating them, and we'll follow this space as it evolves. And then we go next to Darius, Joyce, and scroll down, please. And we've got same kind of thing going on here, very unfortunately, but this is the heart and soul of the personal conduct policy. Again, is conduct detrimental? That which is deemed to be detrimental to the league's brand, whether or not there's a conviction, whether or not there's final judgment in a civil case. The commissioner, that's why I was asking that provocative question. The commissioner can and will, and often has in the past, come in and taken action. What is happening here, Erin Caputo?
Yeah, a little more straightforward than Deshaun Watson here, but as it says here, Geis was arrested and charged with one count of strangulation, 3 counts of assault and battery, and this is kind of right in the wheelhouse of the personal conduct policy here. Similar to some of the things we saw in the past couple of years when we were looking at Antonio Brown and Ezekiel Elliott, measuring those things against each other, using those as precedent. Darius Geis suspended here for 6 games under the personal conduct policy. This is one of the more textbook personal conduct policy disciplines that I've seen. So thought it was a good update here just to illustrate, where we've come under this personal conduct policy, especially since a lot of precedence has been set here in the past couple of years. And you can see some of those in our old update links and update videos too, to keep updated past some of the updates that have included in the supplements in the book.
This would be page 13 and following. in the book. As Erin said, we'll even have last year's update video just to keep you abreast of that, which has happened since the publication of the book and the prior supplements having been published. And it will tie back to the uniform player contract. So chapters 1 and 2 sort of go together. We're going to be getting to chapter 2 with a separate update, but you're also going to want to be mindful of the fact that the team itself can also discipline in these situations, but there can't be there's no double jeopardy. It can't be punished both by the team and the league.
Yeah.
So the next one, and again, Ellie or Erin asked if you want to jump in on this one, or if you want to stay with Erin Caputo. Feel obliged under the equivalent of the personal conduct policy in Major League Baseball to update you on Trevor Bauer. Again, terrible, really hard stuff even to read these words and project them to you. I hope no one is offended, but this is out there, and it's terrible stuff. No matter how it comes out, it's reprehensible. I just don't know if Bauer will ever pitch in the major leagues again. They have taken advantage of the equivalent of the exempt list thus far, administrative leave, one after another, kind of unfortunately speaks for itself. But if we want to stay with the hot hand, Erin Caputo, where does this fit into chapter 1, commissioner's authority, also team discipline, which would be the uniform player contract, more so chapter 2, and how do you see this sort of rolling out on a go-forward basis? Do you think Trevor Bauer will ever play again in the major leagues, and should he, if you were the commissioner?
Yeah, and this is a terrible situation, as we've seen, and it's been incredibly public as to what Trevor Bauer is being accused of. But so yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, there's been unfortunately a lot of suspensions in Major League Baseball under the domestic violence policy. There's actually, I think I included a link in here that shows all the policies, all the suspensions this year, and actually that same link you can filter to show suspensions in past years as well, and it'll say exactly what the suspensions are for. And unfortunately, that website is littered with suspensions under the domestic abuse policy. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Trevor Bauer was initially placed on the 7-day administrative leave in July, and that had been extended multiple times as there was this restraining order hearing. The woman who's accusing Trevor Bauer of these acts filed a restraining order against him in late June, which kind of triggered all of this discussion. And so he's initially placed on the 7-day administrative leave, and then that was continued, basically until, I guess throughout currently, even though this hearing on the restraining order was last week. And again, it was found that, the restraining order was denied. I don't know if that'll have much of an effect on Trevor Bauer's discipline. I do think he will be disciplined for a significant period of time. But I think the claims here are so gruesome and so awful. I don't see Trevor Bauer. I do think he will play at some point again in Major League Baseball. I don't think it'll be anytime soon. And then, as you said, press Carfagna, in terms of what happens when, depending on how long suspended, when he can actually come back, that ties into player contract issues as well, which we touched on in chapter 2. But that's kind of the way I see this going, is that a decision will be made here. I don't know if it'll be made shortly. Again, I think letting as many facts come out and conducting a thorough investigation here, similar to what the NFL would do or is doing in the Deshaun Watson situation, is probably what's going to happen here. And so I don't know if the decision is going to be made anytime soon, but I do think it's going to be a lengthy suspension for Trevor Bauer, and it's going to put a hurt on him and his career and his career earnings, and we'll see where it goes. But that's kind of my take on it.
Thank you, Erin. And of course, this ties back to the book, page 5. Major League Baseball Commissioner's Power, brief summary, page 5, team versus league and commissioner's authority, starting at page 5, and then read back into these cases by looking at the personal conduct policy as is described at pages 7 and following, 7 and in particular as it relates to MLB, league and team authorities distinguished there at page 6. So we're updating the book as we go. Okay, now we go to on-field. So off-field, on-field is something we always distinguish as we go through the evolution of 3 major leagues and commissioners and league authority. Again, uniform player contract could kick in if the individual team wanted to, but now we've got some really interesting and exciting. We're getting the foreign substance rules, which are new, but on-field conduct and good footnotes that'll guide you to more detail on how this is playing out this year. Bench clearing brawl, always appealable, reduction of the suspension. Castellanos, flexing and shouting. I mean, what sort of, and let's put this all together with the foreign substance rules. I mean, we can read through these. These are the most interesting ones to me. But again, staying with Erin Caputo, since you're a former college baseball player who follows this stuff and comes to many captain games and watches them with me. This is pretty standard fare, the on-field conduct thing. We're not surprised by that. So let's go to the foreign substance rules. A former catcher, a college catcher. I mean, were your guys that were thrown at you? Were they keeping stuff in their glove and they just weren't telling you, Erin? I mean, I bet they were.
Not at the level I played at, no. That didn't happen in Division III baseball.
I bet they were. Just don't check my glove.
I'm sure it could have though if they wanted to. There wasn't that strict rules.
Yeah, but I mean, whence comes this rule? Are we?
Yeah.
Again, commissioner's authority. We're just going to impose this. Didn't have to be collectively bargained, right?
Right.
I mean,
that's correct. Yeah. I mean, rules of the game. It's funny in that like these rules were already in place, right? And as it states here, Rule 3.01, they just weren't being enforced at all. And so we get to the point where there's been a change in baseball where it's become more home run and strikeout as opposed to a lot of traditional how the game's traditionally been played. And I think we got to a point where pitchers got incredibly dominant and got more and more dominant. And Major League Baseball, knew that this was a problem. Hadn't really been enforcing in the past, but figured, for probably, not as a justification, but because, one of the reasons they wanted to do it was for the best interest of the game to create some more excitement is to, help level the playing field a little bit here. And they knew that, having this sticky stuff and manipulating it to whatever it is, get more spin rate on the ball was a competitive advantage for pitchers. And so they wanted to, enforce these rules a little more in order to deter pitchers from doing that. And so, discipline was a 10-game suspension for players. That spot wouldn't be replaced on the 26-man roster. It was something that, was implemented really quickly in the middle of the season, which I found to be curious. And a lot of pitchers really angry about it. You heard, Tyler Glasnow of the Tampa Bay Rays claim that, his arm injury was due to the fact that, the rules were changed in the middle of the season and he couldn't, grip the ball or throw it as he had been doing for the past couple of years. And so it was a really puzzling rule change for the MLB. I mean, I understand why they did it. I don't know if I understood the timing of it. But this is where we're at right now, and who knows what's going to happen at the end of the year. I mean, they raise the seams, they lower the seams, they they do all sorts of stuff in order to make the game as competitive as possible. So who knows where this is going to go? But it was interesting to me to see this implemented in the middle of the season.
We might go to the next one. It might have been in Chapter 3, which is really about MLB, but it really is also about commissioner's authority.
Right.
And we're going to go to NBA and a little NHL, this was a very, provocative move. Had all sorts of sponsorship implications. It's more, I think, to demonstrate the best interest of the game. It goes all the way back to the very first commissioner's authority cases that we read about in the book. It goes back to, the absolute and ultimate authority that the MLB commissioner had, and the invocation of that, no need. Reason or need to collectively bargain. That's a big distinction we'll be making. What has to be bargained, what can be imposed by the commissioner. And this is one where you've got some good footnotes where he just who knows, decided in the best interest of the game, which is what he has to invoke. Rob Manfred decided this was the best thing for all concerned. Really not a whole lot more to say without getting too political about it. But
that's what I was going to say. Best interest of the game. Yep, that's
best interest of the game.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, NBA. Just a couple of quickies as we go across the three, and then we'll get to COVID, which, boy, that was a big part of the course last year. Thankfully, it's not quite as big a part Ellie
Yeah,
and Erin.
I think, yeah, the
But
NBA, a couple quick hitters, I think. We've talked about the anti-tampering policy in the past. More recently, I think 2019, 2020 updates, we hit on it relatively significantly. But here, another example here in that Daryl Morey, GM of the 76ers, both him and the 76ers fined $75,000 after he made a comment on one of Steph Curry's posts about Seth Curry, who was on the 76ers, saying join them. And it just shows how far discipline can go underneath this policy. A 2-word Instagram comment can then result in a $75,000 fine under the anti-tampering policy. We saw some of this stuff with Magic Johnson and other, front office executives and other players in the past, talking about other players under contract. So this is just another example of that. And the next one is Miles Leonard. We see the, authority under, commissioner's authority here to suspend under best interest of the game. That's why you see this reaching the threshold of the $50,000. Miles Leonard was just fined $50,000 because of use of an anti-Semitic slur during a live stream. And I think this is something, an evolution of the course, and that we're seeing. There can be discipline for some of these more new age technological advances, with players streaming and social media being a lot more prevalent nowadays. There's 100% discipline that's levied based on a lot of those things, especially when you use, slurs during your tweets, your streams, your Instagram lives, your Instagram posts, whatever it is. If that's conduct if that's detrimental to the game, then there can be a fines and suspensions associated with that.
And thank you, Erin. National Basketball Association Commissioners Authority, moral integrity of the sport, commissioners' powers. That would be page 8 and 9, and the $50,000 threshold that you referenced is really the over/under. Anything over that is appealable. You'll see that at page 9 and 10. And then we always have the team authority under the uniform player contract. So that's 3 for 3. We now see how that has evolved in the NBA. And you've got some more NHL. Well, there's a 4th major league. And for those of you who want to follow hockey, we will be covering hockey. And this is a gambling case, which again, gambling is covered in some detail. And we'll continue to pursue that thread in chapter 1, some of the older gambling cases. And as those evolve, we'll be following those. I guess we can run. Yeah, round 30.
The one thing I'd say on that piece is that, this Evander Kane scandal type thing that you call, whatever you call it, it's reminiscence of, if these allegations are true, it's reminiscence of the Black Sox scandal. Maybe it's not the World Series, but it's betting on games, and it's betting for your team to lose. It's throwing games, and it brings us back. Maybe some poetic justice brings us back to the implementation of the commissioner and commissioner's authority in the first place. So
absolutely. Thank you. Well said. And Pete Rose, we'll never get in the Hall of Fame. Well, I don't think Evander Kane's going to have to worry about that either. NHL Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Okay, COVID updates. Again, we assume, if you're in this course, you're kind of interested in this. And boy, oh boy, all the bouncing ball. We've certainly had to accommodate all the COVID updates with our minor league team, and work very closely with Major League Baseball and the Cleveland Indians here all season long. Here's maybe the most interesting recent update. Or in the NFL update. Ellie, I did mean to come back to you on the tampering, but we'll come back to you. I know you wrote a whole paper on that last year, so you shouldn't sit silent. It was almost an award-winning paper, definitely a great paper. But we're trying to do this in the interest of time. Talk about this pretty draconian NFL again. Erin, just staying with you. I mean, how can they say this? This is basically mandating vaccination, which is again so political. We don't want to talk too much about it, but how come this didn't have to be collectively bargained?
Yeah, I think, I think it comes out of one, commissioner's authority, and two, some of the policies that they agreed to last year after there was a whole, when they essentially, it wasn't a collective bargaining agreement, but it was an agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA on how they were going to handle the upcoming season during COVID. And this is, some of these were contemplated in that agreement. I just think it's now, there's this insertion of this vaccination essentially requirement because the punishments here are going to be so severe in the event that there is a canceled game due to an unvaccinated player or a group of players or coaches on the team causing a canceled game. But I think a lot of players were confused as to why this wasn't discussed with them or why it wasn't collectively bargained. I mean, I think that's one of the points to make here is that, did it need to be collectively bargained? That there hasn't, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a grievance filed or anything. And I think the NFL would be leaning on, the crutch of probably implementing it under the agreement, the COVID agreements last year, and also commissioner's authority in terms of best interest of the game and things like that as well.
Yeah. Ellie or Erin S., do you want to go back through any of these links before we move to chapter 2 update, which we're going to be signing off on this and then signing back on for chapter 2. But Erin or Ellie, you must say something about the tampering cases. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think for all of the leagues, there's an overarching question of, are you trying to protect the interest of the teams in terms of the market for free agents or trades, or just generally the movement of labor, and have it all occur above board and not within periods where folks are under contract with one team or another? Or are you trying to protect public perception that everybody is competing in kind of a fair market? For every tweet that somebody puts out saying join them from the VP of basketball operations or whatever else, there are probably hundreds of conversations going on behind the scenes, and you run into a problem where it's almost impossible to enforce. So yes, you get the $75,000 fine for Daryl Morey in this particular instance, but I think the bigger question is, are we actually enforcing a tampering policy, or are we just finding people stupid enough to say it out loud? And if it's the latter, then what function exactly does it serve?
You have now read Ellie's paper that was from last year, except it was beautifully summarized. That was the executive summary. Thank you. Erin S., anything you want to add on any of this? I know you did chapter 2, so we're going to say best for next, but anything else that you help put this together too? Anything else you want to add?
No, I'll save it for chapter 2.
Okay. All right, Erin Caputo, thank you so much for once again helping us put this course together. We're off to a running start. We can close out this first Zoom update. Links will follow on the campus course site. This will be uploaded along with this video, and we'll close this one out right at about 5:29, I guess it is, and we'll move on to chapter 2. And thanks for your continuing attention.